When I was younger, on a family trip to Toronto, we visited somewhere called Casa Loma, which is a castle that's over 100 years old that's in downtown Toronto. So when I found out that I'd be there for a couple days before my surgery, I knew I wanted to revisit and photograph it. So here's us doing that. Walking up to it, I started by taking, some photos of the outside. The architecture is really beautiful, and it's a really cool building, and I've just felt nostalgic going there again after once going there probably 10 years ago at this point. So the first place we started when we walked in was the Grand Hall, which is this massive 2-story tall room with an organ in it, a balcony from the upstairs, the grand staircase, and a suit of armor. So I took a bunch of photos there and documented that whole area. Next, we moved on to the library, which was this massive room with a massive bookshelf across the whole wall. So I took a bunch of photos in there, and connected to it was the dining room, which had this beautiful skylight on it, some tables, some chairs, and it was set up with some antique furniture that would have been period correct at the time. Next to that was the garden room, which was this marble, stone, green colored room with a huge dome glass ceiling that I guess they would have had a garden in and flowers in, and they would have used it for parties and events and hosting people and stuff like that. So I grabbed a bunch of photos of that. The water fountain in front of the window looked really good. The upper glass looked really cool. And I just took tons of photos of this room because it was really beautiful. Down the hallway from those rooms was the study, which was Sir Henry Pallet's study. This room was really cool. It had a lot of old furniture, old items, a lot of antiques. It was very well decorated for the time that it was built. And attached to this was 2 secret passageways. One would go upstairs to the second floor, and one would go downstairs to the basement. We went down the downstairs one first. And this brought us to the basement, which had a bunch of movie posters of different films that were shot at Casa Loma, which was super interesting to see. And also, there was like a cafe garden thing. But what was attached to this was a tunnel. And this tunnel took you across under the street. So we were across the street now to what was the stable and garage and where they grew the plants for the garden. So we walked through the tunnel, which was dark and kind of creepy and really hard to take photos of. And then we made it to the garage stable area. The garage and stable area was very, very cool. They had a bunch of antique cars set up, like Ford Model Ts and early 1920s, 1930s stuff. And they had some tools and, stuff like that, stuff that would be in a garage. But they also had a little setup of different movie characters for different films that had scenes shot at the Casa Loma castle. So we walked through that. There was the Joker, there was X-Men, some others. And we walked through that, and that was super interesting, super cool to see. After that, we made our way back to the main building, where we would go upstairs. So we went back to the study, and then we went up the secret passage to the second floor. The second floor was a lot of bedrooms. So there was a lot of antique bedrooms, antique bed sets, bathrooms, and other stuff like that. This is where the people who lived there would have lived. So some of the bedrooms would look off into the garden, backyard area. Some looked into the grand hall. There was all sorts of different bedrooms, guest rooms, and just different places for people to stay in the castle. So we photographed that, walked around and explored all those rooms, and then we moved on to the third floor. The third floor was converted to a museum since nobody actually lived up there because the castle never got fully finished in the time that people were living there. So we walked around the museum parts. It was like World War II and other Canadian military history things, and that was super interesting. But once we moved through that, it was time to go up the tower. To get to the tower, first you had to go up a wooden staircase that would bring you to this sort of attic type area that I'm assuming they would have used for storage or just access to the towers. After walking through that, you finally get to the spiral staircase that would take you up to the tower. The spiral staircase would go up 2 floors, and only one person at a time can go up it. But after getting to the top, we were on top of the tower. And looking across that, you see the whole Toronto skyline. So one of my bucket list things in Toronto was to get a shot of the skyline from a rooftop. And there's not a lot of rooftops that you can get on easily in Toronto. Like in New York, for example, there's Top of the Rock, there's Empire State Building, there's One World Trade Center, there's Vanderbilt and Summit. That's like 6 different things that you can get on the roof, take photos of, and see the whole city. Toronto has the CN Tower, and that's pretty much all I could find. So being on top of this tower at the castle, not super high, probably 5-6 stories tall in comparison, was super cool because it allowed me to get that kind of rooftop photo that I've really wanted of Toronto. The view was great, and you really got to see like a lot of the upper castle features, like the towers. There's a couple of them, and the roof working and the stone working, and it was just a really cool thing to see. So after spending a few minutes up there and taking as many photos as I could of all the angles and all the different views, we went back down the stairs to continue on to the rest of the castle. The final part of the castle that we haven't visited yet was the backyard garden area. So we popped out there to see what it looked like. Now, we were there in early May, so not a lot was really grown in yet, as it's just becoming spring and winter's finally phasing out. So we walked around the garden, I took a bunch of photos, saw some more city skyline viewpoints, and got a bunch of good shots at the back of the tower. Casa Loma is a very special place that is very nostalgic for me and holds an important part in my heart. It's one of those things that really stuck out to me in Toronto trips when I was younger. Along with the CN Tower and the Toronto Zoo, these are one of the core memories from when I was younger, and one of the many things I wish I could go back and photograph. So it's really cool to go back with a modern perspective and a modern eye and a photographer's eye and really document it the way I was excited about it when I was younger. If you're ever in the Toronto area and you have time to kill and you want to visit a really cool place, I suggest visiting Casa Loma.